Hey, my name is Kevin. Today I want to show you how to create a contact form using jQuery. We're going to use jQuery to validate the form, so when the user type in, they don't forget to fill out some of the fields, or they don't click the submit button too early. So basically a simple contact form you can put on your own website. And we're going to use a service called PhoneSpree, which enables you to post to their service and then receive an email without you having to set up anything. So let's get started. The first thing we need is a new folder. So let's basically call our new folder called contact form. So after we create the folder, we can change directory into that folder. And now we can open the code editor, code. So you can see here we are in this folder, and the first thing we need is of course an index file. So index.html. Then in here we add the normal HTML structure. So the first time is a doc type, so we have the newest HTML5 enable, then an HTML, a head, and a body, and a simple h1 to see that it's actually working. Hello world. Okay, let's quickly open that in our browser just to see that it's working correctly. So I will do open dot to see it in our Finder, and then I will just pull the file to our browser. So here we are in Chrome, and we can see it's working. Great. So basically now we should add the contact form. Our contact form will include one email field, one subject field, and a third, the message field. So basically 3 fields that you can have. You can add more if you want to later, but this is the field. And also that's the field that we're going to validate on. The email should of course have a @ sign and a dot at least, and the subject and the message should have at least a minimum length before we actually want to send it. So the first thing we'll do is just add the whole HTML. So let's find our editor here. So the first thing, let's change this to be contact me. Contact me. Cool. The first thing then we need is a form, and the next thing is that we want to have the email field. And a cool thing you can do here to actually make it so it looks good is that we need to have a label on top of each input field. So let's add a label, and normally you could add a for attribute, but shorter and easier is just to wrap the whole thing inside a label and then add the label tags, text, and input field. This is good HTML, and actually how the v3c documentation is described. So let's say the first one is called email, and then add an input, and we can actually benefit from something like the email here, you can see, and then we add a class to it as well called email. Then the next one was our message, and that should also be an input and will be the type text, and the class will be message. Then the last thing we want is to have a text area, which allows us to have more lines to type in and actually be able to type enter. So a label for that, and then say message. This should actually be the subject. So let's change that quickly. Subject, and called text area, and that's basically it. And then at the end we also want to have a button that we can click on. So here we want to have a button and want to have it to be a type submit. so that when you click on it, it actually submits the form, and then we can say send. Good. So that was basically what we have for the HTML. Let's go and see in the browser what it looks like. Save it, reload it, and we can see that we have it all on one line. It would actually look better if we had just had it all like on a single line going down forward. So what we should do is that we should go in here, add a CSS file, style.css. Then we can go in and see here, say label, and then we can say display block. Then we can go in here and include it, and we can just say link, and it would be abbreviated by Emmet, and then we can say dot slash, and then you can see we got the suggestions for style.css. Save it and then see if it loads, reload it perfectly. So now we can see all the labels are on each line, but we also want to have the input on each line. So let's go back, go into our style.css and add up here, we can say comma input. That means that both the label and the input will have this rule applied. So we can go back and see, and now basically email and the subject was correct, but we still need to add text error because that was not an input. Let's go back and add that as well, text error. So now our form looks a little bit better. Now we can actually see what we're typing. So the next thing is that we need to have some JavaScript. We want to be sure that whenever the email it actually contains an @, a dot, and a minimum length, and the same for subject and message, that it should be a minimum amount of chars, so that we can actually be sure that there's something meaningful. And we want to do that whenever you click send. We also want to have a field above the send, so you can tell the user if they did something that was not good. So let's go back and add that quickly, because here we can have a div that would be called, for example, status, class status. So we're ready. Let's add a JavaScript file called main.js, and then add a quickly console.log to see that we have loaded it correctly. It works. Then inside our index, let's add it here at the top, script source, and then /main.js, and then close it off. Save it, and then we can go back to our browser. We can say here, right click, inspect, or we can also press Command Alt J and open up the console. Then we can reload, and it should work. Let's try to see if it can be script, and say it works. I think it was because I didn't close it correctly. But now we have that working. We can see that we have JavaScript. Then we want to have jQuery, so we have some easier, and we can load this from something called JS Deliver, which is a really cool CDN that allows us to quickly load stuff. Here we can see they already have an example on how to load jQuery, and we can click on it and see that it's actually the code we want. So we can copy this URL and actually put it in before our main.js, and it's very important to do it before, because else jQuery will not be loaded at the time that we actually try to require it. So we have our script here, and source again, put it in, close it, and have the end script tag. Perfect. Now in our main.js we add a document and then ready, and add a function for that callback. And the reason why we have a document already is because we are in fact loading the JS up here and not after the HTML. If we loaded after the HTML, it would be ready, but it's a good idea to always wait for the document to be ready to begin to add different call handlers. So the first thing you want to do is that we want to listen on the button, that when we're clicking that, we want to see that it's actually working. So you can see we have a button here. Let's add a class here called submit, so we can see that when we're catching this, it's actually this button we can. So say here dot submit, and whenever we click on it, we want to run this function. This function, whenever we get the click handler, it has as a first argument something called the event, and we can, with this event, there is a special function we can call to prevent the default action of this button. So basically what we're going to do is that we call to say event.prevent default. The reason we want to prevent default is because normally this form, it will try to post whenever it has a button that's called type submit. But we don't want that, because we want to wait and validate the form before we actually submit the form to the server. So by doing event.prevent default, we tell the browser to not actually send the form that or trigger the form submit. And we can do a console.log to see that we are actually clicking this button. Clicked button. Good. Let's try that and see if it works in the browser. Go to our browser, close these two tabs, say reload, and then click send. And you can see we click the button, and it doesn't matter how many times we click the button, the form will not get sent. Good. Now the next thing is that we want to get the values of these three fields that we have. So let's say the first thing here was the email. We can say .email and say .val, and that was because we called the CSS class email, and this is an easy way to get it. We can clone the line, and then we had the subject, and we called it subject as well. And we have the message, and we called it message as well. Good. So now we have the three different values. Now we basically want to validate if these three values is as we expect. We want, for example, the email to have at least 5 characters in length, because that would be the minimum you can have your email. Like, it needs to include at least some of different symbols. So email the length should be more than 5. And we also want to combine this with an AND operation. So we want to say the length and email, so includes the @ and email should include a dot, which means, so basically what we're doing now here is says email and email should include this @ and it should also include a dot, which means that if all these three evaluations needs to be true before we go into this if statements. So hey, basically right here it's email is valid, or else email is not valid. But this is a console.log and the user doesn't see that. So basically we want to show this to the user in a really easy way. So we added the status, and we can get the status element, so status element, and by doing this, so .status. And the good thing is, because maybe we are validating the form multiple times, we can start out by every time we run this function, we want to empty it, just so we are always back from scratch. So each time we are basically validating, we can basically tell the user by doing status element append, and append basically means that it would add new HTML inside that status or inside that selector. So basically we can do this, we can add a new div that will basically tell the user the email is not valid. And we can do the same down here. So instead of console.log, we're basically putting it into the document so the user can see it. So email is not valid. So let's do that at the end of the others. So subject should at least be subject.length should be more than 2, or else we will say subject is not valid. Else subject is not valid. And the last part, if message.length should be at least 20, so then we can say status element dot append a div and message is not valid. Oh, that was actually inside here, so we say else, or copy this, message is valid. Good, let's try this out. So basically we can reload the page, we can try to say send, and it will actually say email is not valid, subject is not valid. But we can see we got an error, and this was probably because we spelled length wrong. So let's go back and see that. And we spelled it wrong at the line 26. So let's see that, 26. So message.length, message. Let's see if we added another error inside here. We forgot to add the class. So let's add that and it should work. Oh, it was not on the label, but it should be on the text area. Like this. Let's try it again. Reload. Let's try to just press it as if you had not done anything. And you can see it says email is not valid, subject is not valid, message is not valid. Let's try to validate and see when we begin to type in something if it actually is valid. So hi, how are you? Now we can see email is valid, subject is not valid. And let's try to see what went wrong right now. The subject.length should be more than 2. And is it more than 2? No, because you can see it's not more than 2, but it's actually more than or equal to. So we can say more than or equal to, and you can actually see it also validated correctly here because we didn't write a message that was more than 20, but let's set it down to 20. So less than or equal to. Let's try it again. So kevin@simper@gmail.com. Let's say hi, how are you, ? And you can see everything is valid. So this is really good. Now we basically validate the form and saw that the form will not submit, but now we actually want to go in and submit this with form free. So let's go into forms3 and see how this works. So basically we'll go into this service forms3.io, and you can see it's super easy. It's basically what you need to do is that you need to add this action and the method, and then the rest of it will be taken care of. So let's just copy this. So we copy it and we go into our index, and then we say form and add this to our form. So basically now we should change this to our own, kevinsimper@gmail.com. And we still have one thing we need, because remember we added this to our top of our click function, and we say event.prevent default. So what basically this does is that it always do, no matter what we do, even though the form is still valid, we prevented the default action. So what we can do here in this example is that we can just every time there's something that makes a form invalid, we would basically call event prevent default. This would allow us just pretty easily to add it without having to worry about checking if the previous was invalid or if such. So basically every time the email is not invalid, we would just call this, and this would ensure that the form will not submit, and it will keep the function pretty simple still. So basically now this will work. So let's go back to our index and we can fill it out again. Hi, how are you? and let's try to submit it. And you can see we're actually able to submit it, and the form displayed it for a short second. But you can see here Formspree is working on this. It depends on that it can actually read the refer fee. And what you can actually see is that because the website is hosted on our own computer with the file, Chrome will not set the refer fee, and that is how Formspree knows which sites we're coming from. So the solution to that is we go back to our terminal, and if we have Node.js installed, if not, you can go to nodejs.org and install it right here. After you have installed that and restarted your computer, you can basically say npm install serve-g, and this will install a simple web server that you can use. I will do that now. So I've probably spelled something wrong. I spelled it with only one L. So npm install serve, and what that would do is that it will install a global package. So we will basically be able to say serve here, serve, and it will start up a web server with our contact form. So basically like Apache, but much simpler. So we can basically copy this. I opened it up, but it was not the correct browser I wanted it in. So let's go back here and open this, and you can see it's basically the same as before. So let's try it out. Say kevinsimper.com, say hi, how are you, ? And then send it. And we can see we need to validate that we actually want to send this, so we're not bot, and just click here. And it works. So basically form submitted, and I will go and find my email in just a second, and then we can see how it looks. There's a big problem right here. Right now the email doesn't have anything, and this was because we made a mistake. We made a mistake by not having the field have a name. So in here what we need to do is, to make it work, we need to go in index here, and then each of the field needs to have a name, because that is how when we submit the form the values will be sent. So let's go in and add that email. That was a little bit of a mistake. There's the subject as well, name, subject, and message, add that message. So let's quickly try that again. Go into our form, go back, Kevin, hi, how are you? And we send it again, and I'll find my email just in a second. So you can see here's the form that we made, the subjects and the fields that we have, and basically what we did now was we created a contact form, we validated the user, we helped them a little bit along with our messages. They could be improved, for example, by telling what they did wrong, but that's something you can add. We send it to Formspree. There's a really easy way to send contact forms and emails, and we validated that we actually saw that it worked. So thank you for this time. I'm looking forward to see it on your website. Please ask questions down below and subscribe if you want to see more of this. Anyways, see you next time. Thank you.